Hello, and welcome to my channel. So, I don't consider myself to be an elder emo, considering I have not yet entered my 30s, but compared to some of these kids on TikTok, I'm literally geriatric. And it really hurts. I remember seeing Jeffree Star at Warped Tour before he was a beauty YouTuber turned yak farmer. I remember when Ryan Ross left Panic at the Disco. And most importantly, for the sake of this video, I was fairly sentient in 2001 when My Chemical Romance was first formed. I remember album releases, I remember tours. I was there when they broke up and subsequently got back together. And by the time you're watching this, I will have just seen them on their Black Parade anniversary tour. And another important core memory for me was the Twilight craze that lasted from approximately 2005 to 2012. Although some may say we are still living through it. Now, a caveat to that. I didn't read the first Twilight book when it was published in 2005, considering the fact that I was still in elementary school, but I was introduced to the books in 2008 through a YouTube channel called 5 Awesome Girls. This was a kind of daily Vlogbrothers inspired channel with these teen girls, I don't know, maybe they were teens, early 20s, and they were obsessed with Twilight. And as I consider them something of my internet older sisters, so was I. So I devoured all the books that had been published at the time before seeing the first film when it came out that year. It was actually Twilight that got me into My Chemical Romance. I was a religious visitor of a Twilight fan site called hisgoldeneyes.com that featured an absolutely gorgeous playlist. And on that gorgeous playlist was Vampires Will Never Hurt You by My Chemical Romance. And now I do have older siblings that probably do consider themselves to be true elder emos, so I was aware of My Chemical Romance prior to my Twilight phase, although I'm still in it, so I guess it wasn't a phase. Anyways, I was aware of My Chemical Romance, but it was Twilight and that particular playlist that launched me into the fandom. So all of this to say, in quite a long introduction, that I have been both a Twilight fan and a My Chemical Romance fan for a while. And when I heard this ridiculous rumor that was being passed off as fact, that Twilight started off as My Chemical Romance fanfiction, I was appalled. Truly, I can't understand what history YouTubers go through when they hear things like, oh, Helen Keller wasn't real. But I imagine that I'm feeling a modicum of that right now. So, let me set the record straight. I know you love Twilight. I know you care about Twilight, but maybe you're a little bit hazy on the origins of the saga. Or maybe like me, you're an original fan that just wants to hear someone yap about the franchise for a little while. I don't know. Maybe you're longing for the days of that OG I Heart Boys Who Sparkle t-shirt. I know I am. And yeah, I do know that they sell like a new updated version. I don't know, I kind of miss the charm of like the crappy Twilight font with the big heart. It's ugly and I like it, okay? And side note, when I was looking, oh, do you hear that? Okay, wow, Mother Nature is on my side. Vampires are playing baseball right now. What was I saying? Oh yes, side note, when I was doing research for this video, I was looking at old merchandise displays from Hot Topic at the time when the first film was released, and I came across an image of this perfume, and I've simply never seen it. I need it immediately. Anyways, as all great stories began, this too started with a Mormon housewife awakening from a sexy, mysterious dream that she just couldn't let go. Less than a year after My Chemical Romance's first album was released, Stephenie Meyer began writing Twilight. In her own words, I know the exact date that I began writing Twilight because it was also the first day of swim lessons for my kids, so I can say with certainty that it all started on June 2nd, 2003.
Well, I got the idea for Twilight from a dream, and it sounds kind of cheesy, but it was a great dream. I woke up from it and just sat there thinking about these characters. It was, the meadow scene in the novel is basically the dream that I had, and when I woke up, I wanted to know what would happen to them next. You know, how would they work out this situation? And so I sat down. I was afraid of forgetting the dream because it was so good. And I sat down to write it out. And so that first day I wrote 10 pages and pretty much all of chapter 13. And then after that, I just wanted to know what was going to happen. So I never sat down to write a novel. It was just a chance to kind of play with the characters in my head.
Incredibly, the first draft of the manuscript was completed in August of 2003, just 2 months after Stephenie Meyer began writing. She said she wrote every night after her kids went to bed, and mama kudos. I know she was tired. After the querying process, and with a ton of good luck, Twilight was picked up by Little Brown, and in the span of just 6 months went through the entire pre-publication process. The first Twilight book was published in September of 2005, just 2 years later. And you know the rest. It became a bestseller, launched an entire film franchise, and has lived in our hearts ever since. So it's not that the whole Twilight My Chem connection came out of nowhere. When the first Twilight film came out and launched the franchise into a stratosphere previously only occupied by Harry Potter, there was so much content to consume, and Stephenie Meyer was more than happy to share plenty of information, though, blessedly, never her opinions on trans rights. One topic that Meyer loved to discuss was music. As we know, Muse is her favorite band, or at least it was at the time, and her love of them gave us one of the greatest moments in cinematic history.
Nice kitty.
Meyer also shared the playlist that inspired her books on her blog, which is blessedly still up to this day and is truly so charming as a relic of a bygone era. As you can see, it's odd that so many people made the connection between Twilight and My Chemical Romance in the first place. I mean, yeah, they're on the playlist once. She was a fan, but by far they weren't her greatest influence. It's also important to note that obviously this playlist has been doctored a little post-Twilight release. As we just discussed, Twilight was written in 2003. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge was released in 2004. So obviously Stephenie Meyer was not listening to I'm Not Okay while she was actually writing the book. I will say though that of course My Chemical Romance was active and hugely popular when Stephenie Meyer was writing the subsequent Twilight books. She even wrote that MCR was a huge inspiration specifically for Jacob Black's character. This band is so in touch for me with Jacob's character. This really raw, uncontrolled emotion, where it's not about some person who's grown up and calloused over and learned how to control things. It's someone who's feeling it for the first time and just wants to go out and blow things up. The song Famous Last Words is a really romantic version of Jacob saying, okay, I'm putting myself out there and you're probably going to break me, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm still going to make the offer. So if anything, we have My Chemical Romance to thank for the existence of Jacob Black, not Edward Cullen. Meyer has also openly stated that her dream casting for the role of Edward Cullen was Henry Cavill. However, by the time the films were in production, he was too old. She wrote, "The most disappointing thing for me is losing my perfect Edward. Henry Cavill is now 24 years old. Let us have a moment of quiet in which to mourn." She then went on to suggest that Henry Cavill could play the role of Carlisle Cullen, Edward's father. And I love Peter Facinelli. I love him down, and he is such a good Carlisle. That scene in New Moon where he has that inexplicable sexual tension with Bella, I mean, that's peak cinema. But could you imagine Henry Cavill? Lives would have changed. My life, specifically. Sadly, probably for Meyer, My Chemical Romance wanted nothing to do with the franchise. And honestly, it's sad for all of us. I mean, those soundtracks were absolute bangers. And could you imagine My Chemical Romance writing a song a la Decode by Paramore? According to Gerard Way, they were asked to contribute a song for New Moon, which they turned down. I'm guessing based on production timelines, this would have been early 2009 maybe. So based on that information, it's like they were asked to do the song, turned it down, and then went into the studio and immediately recorded Vampire Money. They were mad. That's why the song Vampire Money is on our new album, because there's a lot of people chasing that money. Twilight, a lot of people around us were like, please, for the love of God, do this movie. But we'd moved on. I swear, when Daydreams came out, there was this interview with Frank and Gerard, and they were in a pop culture store or a comic book store. I can remember it vividly, and they are absolutely ripping Twilight to shreds. And the reason I remember it so vividly is because I was a fan of both the band and the films/books at the time. And I remember thinking, why can't we all get along? But I mean, now as an adult and kind of like a budding vampire expert, let's say, I understand that if you grew up with traditional horror films and novels featuring vampires, you'd be like, why do they sparkle? Okay, so we've covered all the basics. Twilight is not My Chemical Romance fanfiction. Gerard Way is not the inspiration for Edward Cullen. And honestly, the fanfiction thing is kind of the funniest evolution of this rumor, because what do you mean? Are you trying to insinuate that Stephenie Meyer was shipping Gerard and that Frank was Bella and Gerard was Edward? Or is this more of a kind of Y/N your name situation where she's Bella and Gerard is Edward? Either way, it sounds really, really stupid. But this rumor had to start somewhere. Originally, I thought it started on TikTok, and that might still be true, but it's basically impossible to verify this information because social media apps do such a poor job of archiving their content. I honestly shudder to think what internet historians will do when they need to find information post like 2017. So the earliest evidence of this rumor that I could find started in 2020 on both TikTok and Twitter, which makes sense because 2020 was obviously the pandemic, and that was really the start of the Twilight Renaissance that we all know and loved and experienced. The thing that sucks is that this rumor persists to this day. If you search My Chemical Romance and Twilight together, you will come across a bunch of misinformed dummies trying to convince you of this same information. However, now that you are armed with the truth, now that you have bitten the apple of knowledge, you can experience the same righteous indignation that I do and leave a spiteful comment proclaiming the truth. If My Chemical Romance never existed, we may still have 50 Shades of Grey. And that's going to be it for me today. If you've made it this far, leave a bad emoji. Thanks for sticking with me. #Team Edward.